So I'll try to be very brief here. And just to present myself a little, I work with SEST here at USP. And we work with the intersection between society and technology. So I will try to not speak a lot about the technology itself and to speak about the society part. So what will happen with society when we use blockchain for everything, or when blockchain is internalized like the internet is right now. So very briefly, it's a terrible, terrible task to try to speak about the future of a technology. And here are some examples. People saying the horse would be here forever and the car was just a fad. And people saying that we would have nuclear-powered vacuum cleaners in 5 years or 10 years. And both of those were terribly wrong, so I'm not trying to say that blockchain will be extinguished or that blockchain will solve everything. So we'll try to stay in the middle path here, like say it will work, but it's not. Let's try to not overhype it a lot. And there is some subtle changes that sometimes happen, and the history of technology shows that to us. Here's a quote from Louis Mumford, who said that the real revolution in the first industrial age was made by the clock and not by the steam engine, because the clock was able to standardize the life of people. So that was the true revolution. Before that, we didn't have a standard life. We woke up when we woke up, we worked until we were tired, and we went to sleep when the sun was down. With the clock, we had time to work, we could sell our time, so we could change the way we worked. So the revolution, the technology that we revolutionize, maybe it's smaller than we think, so maybe we won't see it. And, well, people already talked about what the blockchain is, so I will skip this part. And just to highlight two things. Blockchain is a chain of blocks, and there are two very important points here. The first one is the data that you can put in a block. We usually think about monetary assets, but it can be documents, it can be a lot of things. So it's always good to keep in mind that the data we can put on a blockchain is any data. And the second point that's very important is how we produce this nonce, this number. This is what the miners do in the blockchain. And with Bitcoin and Ethereum, we show proof of work. That means we have to do some very hard computations on our computers. And the generation of this number is what drives the energy consumption of the blockchain. So if we can change this, tweak this a bit, we can create blockchains that will consume less energy and will probably be less secure, but there's probably a good point in the middle there. Like, we will not consume as much energy as a country, like Bitcoin is doing now, and we will still be very secure, very decentralized. So that's a good point. But the main issue for me is about who has the power to control the blockchain. So here's an example from a book. If you read it, it's Animal Farm by George Orwell. And after the animals make the revolution in the farm, they write their laws, their new laws, in the wall, because the wall is very public, and the wall has its permanent medium. You cannot take off what is on the wall because it's written there. But only the pigs, if someone hasn't read the book, I'm sorry, I will spoil a little bit of the book for you. But only the pigs knew how to write. Some people knew how to read, but only the pigs knew how to write on this wall. And throughout the book, they made small changes on the rules, and they could do that because they had the power to change the information. So this is not an ideal blockchain. When you do this, when you keep the power centralized, you are not doing the revolution that was thought that you were meant to do. And because this writing things in permanent mediums and having them, this is done for ages now. So this is like the first ledger. It was done to make merchants, by merchants in, I think, Spain. So this is a ledger, and this is a great ledger because it's paper. You can only write under what is already written, but this was done by one person. The power always stayed with one person, with a centralized institution. So when the blockchain came, and especially the Bitcoin revolution, and why we're speaking about that is because we were able to achieve decentralized trust mediated by cryptography. And this is the biggest revolution. With Bitcoin, we were able to eliminate the need for someone to have the power to control the ledger. The ledger was controlled by the rules of the network. So this is new. This is very interesting. And to say a little bit about the cryptographic part, there is a paper. It's the moral character of cryptographic work. And the first phrase of the paper is, cryptography rearranges power. It configures who can do what from what. And this is the true, I think the true message here that I have, the possibilities and the concerns, they come from this. So the blockchain is a tool made with cryptography, so it's a tool that can rearrange power. So when we talk about the Bitcoin revolution, you can transact money without the interference of banks. So this is a rearrangement of power. There are no points of power, no institutions that have power. So if we don't look at this rearrangement of power, we are missing the main point here of this revolution. We are doing business as usual. We are creating better databases for our companies, which is great. But we are missing the key point of this revolution, that we can use this tool to create a more democratic system for several things, like conflict resolution. So we can establish ways to create these systems in a more democratic way, because there is no need to have the power centralized in an institution, in a country, in anything anymore. So this is my very brief presentation. So here's my contacts. If anyone wants to talk to me, I'm both at CEST and at Internet Lab. And thank you for your time.